Welcome to Canadian Innovators, the show that celebrates innovation, entrepreneurs, and the Canadian spirit. I'm Jocelyn Bamford, and every week we introduce a new entrepreneur, tell their stories, and unpack the challenges of keeping jobs in Canada, as well as discussing potential solutions for job growth and prosperity. Canadians of all walks of life are being pounded by inflation. We see it at the grocery store and we see it at the pumps. However, it does not have to be this way. Canada is blessed that we have an abundance of natural resources. We also have the most stringent environmental and safety regulations. Unfortunately, we have a federal government that is determined to destroy our resource sector, and by doing this, will decimate the manufacturing sector by burdening them with unaffordable energy. Joining us to discuss this today is Sue Riddell Rose, President and Chief Executive Officer of Perpetual Energy INC. Welcome, Sue.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Nice to see you.
Thank you for joining us. Perpetual Energy is an oil and natural gas exploration and production company headquartered out of Calgary. Now, I know a lot of our viewers know about the Enbridges and TransCanada on the distribution side, but could you explain the difference of Perpetual Energy and just give us a quick overview of what you do?
Sure. So I would say the energy sector has kind of three segments. And so the Enbridges that you hear about, they have what I would say is the downstream segment, like they're directly connected to the customer. So the buyers of oil and natural gas, they may be a pipeliner too. We're actually at the upstream end, and we are an explorer and producer. So we are scientists, I guess, geologists, engineers that actually find oil and gas in the ground and get it to market.
That's wonderful. So give us an explanation of sort of the day in the life of Perpetual Energy. We'd love to hear about the company and its roots.
Yeah, we were founded in 2002, so we've actually been around a long time. We were the first of two royalty trusts spun out of Paramount Resources. Really, and Paramount Resources had been around for about 25 years as an explorer and producer as well. So we came to be as Paramount Energy Trust. We were originally focused entirely in Northeast Alberta. We had taken the mature shallow gas assets that Paramount had discovered in the 80s and 90s and put them into this royalty trust structure, which was designed to invest capital to hold our production flat and then flow the excess cash flow to our unit holders at that point in a tax effective way. So it was just taxed once in the hands of the unit holders rather than twice, once in the hands of the corp and then once in the hands of the shareholders that receive dividends. So it was a really effective model for mature assets that actually didn't take as much capital. And as we know, oil and gas deposits just decline with production. And so there's an investment that's always required to hold the production flat. And that was a really good model for these assets. So we were, we actually existed as a trust until 2010. The assets were very well suited for that. We actually paid out probably $1 billion to our shareholders for a company the size of ours right now. That seems shocking. Then we had the surprise announcement by the federal government in October of 2007 that effectively abolished the trust. So we had we pivoted and we became an explorer in 2010 and converted to a corporation. And actually, we recently spun out a new company. So Perpetual is managing through a management services contract the operations of Rubellite Energy. It's a new public company. We just listed on the TSX in September, and we're while Perpetual is focused on we have a more diversified asset base at Perpetual with liquids rich natural gas, sort of using that multi-frac technology that was part of the shale oil revolution. We also have some heavy oil, but now we're focused in Rubellite with on the Clearwater, and again using a new technology, which is multilateral drilling technology. So it's been exciting times for us over the last few weeks and months as we got that done.
Now, you are definitely a trailblazer. We're going to go to break, but when we get back, I want you to tell us about what it's like being a female president in the oil and gas industry. So hold on to your thoughts. We'll be right back. And we're back. We're talking with Sue Riddell Rose from Perpetual Energy. And before we went to break, Sue, we were going to talk about what it's like to be a woman in the resource and energy sector, which has typically been very male-dominated. So tell us what your experience was in dealing with this situation.
Yeah, I suspect my days aren't a lot different than my fellow CEOs at all, but I've really had the privilege over the last 20 years to work alongside some amazing leaders, working through a bunch of industry challenges. At CAP, for example, when the Alberta royalty review happened with the Alberta government, it's never been anything but being treated as an equal with kindness and respect. And but it has been, it's a thing in our industry for sure. And I think, there's a very concerted effort to grow the pipeline of women that are actually in leadership roles. And, it has to be purposeful. And we've been trying to be purposeful as an industry and put the support systems in place that we need. But it's really, starts at the pipeline of people coming in. As I mentioned, it's a technical industry. And so, we need more women in STEM to kind of feed the industry. And then really challenging, I think, to keep people in the industry and keep the pipeline going. So, and that's probably probably generic across all industry, not just oil and gas, but and we've had some more recent challenges, I think, because of, I'd say, the reputation that our industry is getting painted with, and it's hard to attract young women into the oil and gas industry right now when we have a tainted reputation to be fighting. And it's not the reputation that people come to know once they get into the industry, but we've got a whole education system that is working against us to actually show the good in the world that can come from working in oil and gas, and particularly Canadian oil and gas. So yeah, but keeping women in the pipeline requires flexible policies, and I think no matter what, that's the critical element. And we've actually had, since our inception, something what we call Flex Life. It's just kind of a way of being, but it allows people to manage through those really busy years, and women can stay when they can manage, and then get to the other side of those busy years of building their career, raising their children, et cetera, and come out the other side. So I think flexibility is just critical, and the COVID experience is probably going to be unlocking a little bit more flexibility for sure than we've ever been able to experience before, because of people are very used to doing this Zoom technology. So
tell us a little bit about how that flexible work day works at Perpetual Energy, because I'm sure a lot of people are very interested in that.
Yeah, well, we call it Flex Life, and it's pretty much really about sort of on the foundations of understand what is important to you, communicate it, and everything can be worked out. So we have a guideline of when people should be roughly available to each other. But if something's important to you in your day, like picking your kids up from school, watching a Christmas concert, you need a half day off to help with your aging parent, perhaps, then you don't have to explain anything. You just make it happen. You just communicate. It's sort of this over communication thing, and it all works out. And that's become, it's cultural now. Like it's not just lip service. It really has to be a part of your culture, and starts, I think, through all the leadership. Everyone uses that, works that way, and people feel comfortable to work that way. So it's a good thing.
That's great. Now we have just about a minute left. I know innovation is key in your industry. So if you could just give us some key things that Perpetual Energy is doing with innovation, and if we have to pick it up after the break, we will.
Yeah, sure. Actually, there's so much going on the innovation front. So I mentioned Rubellite, and there's a whole stream of just innovation that the industry is in to get better at extracting the resources. So Rubellite is taking advantage of a new technology multilateral drilling technology, where we're actually, drilling over 10,000, sometimes even as much as 14,000 meters of open hole in one single well bore. And, it's mind-boggling what we can do with that. But
so I'm going to hold you there. We're going to go to break, and we're going to hear all about it when we get right back.
Great.
And we're back with Sue Riddell Rose from Perpetual Energy. And before we went to break, we were talking about the innovation in the resource sector, and you were sharing with us some of the things that you're doing. So let's pick it up there and continue on with our conversation.
Great. Yeah, I was telling you about some of the innovation that along the lines of the things that we hold close to our chest, because they give us a competitive edge. And so you can buy land, do deals, attract capital when you've got those new ways of extracting resource. But there's so much innovation going on that is now shared amongst our companies. And that is really this is not competitive advantage. This is just the whole industry wanting to get better. And that's in the ESG space, and particularly on emissions reduction, smaller environmental footprints, all of those sort of things. So, we're members of a consortium called the Natural Gas Innovation Fund that's looking at the full value stream, clean tech ideas focused on emissions reduction. And really there's three components to that initiative, one of which is a venture capital fund, but we've got a grant fund that sort of stages new technologies in our partners' businesses, and then an emissions reduction test center, actually, which is, basically, I think, supercharging the opportunity that we have to continue to drive emissions out of our hydrocarbons and make them the best in the world. Actually, they already are the cleanest in the world, but make them even cleaner, so that Canada can actually share that cleaner hydrocarbon with the world.
So what's it like to be in an industry where the federal government is quite literally trying to destroy you?
It is hugely discouraging. It's really evident that destruction is their goal. Industry's working. We work to respond to the concerns, to be ever better, ever cleaner. And the goalposts keep changing. I mean, if their motivation is to decrease emissions from industry, that's completely manageable. There is nobody pushing back from that. And in fact, it's unbelievable the progress that is being made, and partly because of those formal and informal collaborations that we're seeing now. It's just, we're really on an accelerator in terms of emissions reduction and cleaner and cleaner energy. But it's troubling because this federal government really seems to be more set on not finding solutions, but actually just abolishing the industry a little bit from an ideological standpoint. And I think that's just bad for Canada on so many fronts.
Yeah, especially when we could have our prosperity in our resource sector and have so many more jobs in Canada. Now, I know a lot of our innovators give back to the community. Could you share with us what your company's passionate about?
There's a lot of levels to think about that, Jocelyn. I mean, really, the thing I think that keeps all of us going in industry and with our companies is that we're making the lives and livelihoods for Canadians better, and that's really what we're all about. We create a lot of jobs. We build self-sufficiency in the Indigenous communities that we work in. And Canadians actually have access to clean, affordable energy, which is pretty inspiring. Our industry generally has a huge footprint on giving in the community, active United Way campaigns. Perpetual has always been a supporter of United Way in our community, and I actually had the joy, I'd say, of chairing a campaign back in 2011, and I was actually the chairperson for United Way for about 6 years here. I probably finished up about 3 years ago on that, and working together with those agencies and actually just bringing everyone up together. That's I think what we're passionate about.
Great. So, how many employees does Perpetual Energy have? And can you tell us about the difference in growth that you've seen and what you are prospecting for the future?
Yeah, so we have about 50 employees. Our industry has come through a very, very, very rough spell. I mean, life is looking good now on the back of higher energy prices, but COVID was very, very challenging. So I'm proud to say that we didn't actually have any layoffs in our company, and but we did actually shut activity down. We shut production in for a few months, and then there was a slow restart to that. Now, so our 50 people are busier than ever. We've got 2 rigs now going for
I'm going to
Riddell.
stop you there just because we have to go to break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We have Sue Riddell Rose with us. And before we went to break, we were talking about how many people you had working for you in Perpetual Energy and what you think the future is for Perpetual and what the future could be if you had great policy in Canada.
Yeah, well, we have about 50 working directly with us, but really it's about the activity in the field that really raises the jobs numbers. And our rule of thumb is sort of, depending on the type of activity, 100 to 450 people are employed every time we start up a rig. So we have 2 rigs running right now with Rubellite, which Perpetual is managing. And, so that's a lot of jobs on an ongoing basis. And our goal would be to keep those rigs going. And, we're actually at a point where it's hard to bring employees back because we've had a real exodus of labor, I guess, from our industry, partly driven by COVID and partly driven by government policy. But yeah, so there's a lot of uncertainty on prices always, but at this moment in time, it supports actually additional drilling, which is good.
So Sue, if you were the Prime Minister of Canada, what would you do to get jobs and the economy moving, and in particular in the resource sector?
Oh gosh. Well, I think you can start by looking at what's gone wrong and why we are suffering a little bit and why we have suffered and why energy is unaffordable right now or starting to get to be. So, it's all in a cycle. The more you drill, well, there's always depletion. So you always have to keep investing capital. And so when we have now been in this period of serious underinvestment, the last really 5 years on the gas side and probably similar on the oil side, that is actually depleting production. And that's what's making the price signal is, that we don't have enough supply to meet the demand and that, prices need to go up. And that's actually what we're seeing. So, so how can policy be better? I mean, there's a global macro and a Canadian macro, I think. And Canada can be a key supplier to the world, and we have so much opportunity with increasing our exports of clean energy, particularly on the LNG front. Like the amount of offtake our resource actually would support is almost a 40 or 50% increase of production of natural gas from the basin. And, our resource probably supports the same kind of thing on the oil side. And if we actually had policies that were favorable to getting pipelines back on and making those capital investments, I think that would be hugely beneficial to Canadians who, at a provincial level, actually own the resource, and then also Canadians that are supporting the industry with services and manufacturing of pipe and just, there really is a very significant ripple effect. So, and natural resources are one of the only places Canada can actually be like a net exporter. And that's actually how you get your economy growing.
Absolutely, 100%. Now, we just got about a minute left. I know some activists have gone into the financial community to try and strangle the financial support for the resource sector. What would you say to them in about 43 seconds that we have left?
Yeah, well, I just say to government, don't be fooled by this. These are activists spreading false narratives, and they're very well funded. We just had the Allen report come out a few weeks ago, and you can actually just see the tangled web of intervention. And what's driving that intervention is really challenging to think about. But don't be fooled by that. Canadians are actually generating the cleanest energy in the world, and ever cleaner. Oil and gas is an important part of that. And oil and gas is an important part of serious problems that we have in our country with Indigenous communities. And we have, they fell puppet to some of these false narratives, and they're taking their voice back and saying, resource development in Canada is really important to our communities. We work in partnership with great companies, and we want to continue to do that. And so Canadian government step up and help us become self-sufficient. And I hope that Indigenous community narrative will be louder and louder and will be heard, because it really is the true narrative.
So that's all the time we have today. Thanks to Sue Riddell Rose from Perpetual Energy.